This video contains major spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Proceed with caution. Final Fantasy VII Remake went so much harder than it needed to. Many fans would have been happy with a straightforward recreation of the original that merely updated the graphics and gameplay to modern standards while making minimal changes to the story. I was never in that boat though, and I'm so grateful that the development team at Square Enix had the courage, creativity, and ambition to reimagine my favorite video game of all time to such a radical extent. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, incredibly, goes even harder. Often for the better, though occasionally for the worse, it embraces maximalism in every aspect of its design and narrative. Rebirth wants to be the ultimate FF7 experience, offering a massive world brimming with things to do, and retelling the beloved story in greater detail than ever. The story gets dark, even disturbing when it needs to, but so much of this experience is lighthearted, goofy, and joyful. Through its wonderful sense of adventure, excellent combat, and top-tier characterization, Rebirth wants to make you smile, make you laugh, fill your heart with joy. It's not perfect, nothing is, but I found it to be extremely successful in achieving that goal. I'm probably in the minority here, but I like Remake's linear level design. Though unremarkable at times, it serves to guide you from major story beat to intimate character moment to sick action set piece with streamlined pacing and minimal distractions. That said, with the party leaving the confines of Midgar, we all knew that Rebirth would have to be more expansive. It's actually unbelievable though, just how huge this map is. 6 enormous regions, which by the end of the game become seamlessly interconnected. It's almost too big, though I think that would be a harsh criticism given the dev team's clear intent to build a massive world. Each area features a series of activities, side quests, towers, battle challenges, life springs that provide bits of lore about the region, shrines that power up your summon materia, and more. It's standard Ubisoft-style checklist design, and honestly, it's an approach to world design that I've been bored of for a while now. Knocking out the same activities again and again quickly becomes routine, then tedious, especially for someone like me who insists on doing all available side content before moving on with the story. What elevates this experience above other titles that follow this formula, such as Horizon and the excellent Ghost of Tsushima, both of which clearly influenced Rebirth's world design, is variety. The regions feel truly distinct, not just visually, but in terms of how you move through them. Whether cruising across the dunes outside Gold Saucer in your buggy, soaring through the skies above Cosmo Canyon, or riding jets of water in Nibelheim, each zone's unique vehicle or mount changes the way you traverse the terrain, meaning that traversal remains fun and exciting even dozens of hours in. And while you will find plenty of formulaic content, there are some delightful surprises too, primarily through the proto-relic questlines. These take a different form in each region. Some are combat-driven, while others introduce minigames both fresh and familiar. They're frequently surprising and always entertaining. Getting sucked into Fort Condor was a standout moment, both because it was so unexpected, and because I was delighted to be playing one of my favorite minigames again. Collecting all of the proto-relics unlocks one of the coolest, craziest boss encounters in a title full of amazing battles, and there are genuinely wonderful character moments hidden behind these optional quests as well. In Cosmo Canyon, for example, we're treated to flashbacks of Avalanche drinking at 7th Heaven, planning their pilgrimage to study planetology. Seeing the gang back together, even just for a few moments, made me really happy, and Drunk Jesse is an absolute star. If variety is the spice of life, nothing brings more spice to Rebirth's gameplay than its seemingly unending array of minigames. In the original FF7, you can kick a ball at Red 13 and Costa del Sol. So this time, they built a whole-ass Rocket League-style soccer game based solely on that. This encapsulates Rebirth's more is more approach. Even the tiniest details from the OG have been blown up into giant spectacles. In addition to Fort Condor's triumphant return, there's chocobo racing, songs to play on the piano, a real-time strategy game, Fall Guys-style frog obstacle course shenanigans, chocobo gliding courses, and so much more. It's honestly overwhelming, but this stuff is almost entirely optional, so you can pick and choose which ones you feel are worth your time and pass on the others. I'm learning to love almost all of them as I slowly but surely work toward the Platinum Trophy, but if there's one in particular that's worth your time, it's the card game Queen's Blood. Finally, a worthy successor to Triple Triad, the greatest Final Fantasy minigame ever. Queen's Blood works so well because it's easy to learn the basics and win a few matches, but complex enough to pose a worthy challenge as you encounter more advanced players. Some cards can strengthen or weaken other cards in play, so it becomes important to consider how each individual card in your hand or on the table can benefit you or your opponent. In addition to standard matches, there are a number of puzzle challenges as well that test your understanding of each card's unique abilities. And to top it off, there's a cool mystery storyline that unfolds as you conquer more and more opponents. Queen's Blood is sick. Rebirth's combat is also sick, which is important because battling is what you do more often than anything else throughout the game. It's built upon the rock-solid foundation of Remake's genius hybrid system, which for me represents the perfect middle ground between turn-based and action combat. It's everything I want in an RPG battle system, quick and dynamic, while also allowing you to slow things down and carefully consider your options before committing to an action, all the while offering simultaneous control over a full party. Rebirth layers an impressive amount of new mechanics atop Remake's existing system. It took me several hours to get comfortable with these updates, such as learning how to use the new party members and figuring out how to best use their synergy attacks. Once it all clicks though, it absolutely sings. It's the best Final Fantasy battle system ever, no doubt in my mind. At this point I'm going to talk in detail about the story, so if you haven't finished the game yet, this is your final spoiler warning. One of the most surprising aspects of Rebirth is how silly it is. Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised. Remake wasn't afraid to have fun when the situation warranted it, and of course the original is full of wackiness. Rebirth, though, pushes it to the absolute max. From the glorious Junon Parade, maybe my favorite part of the entire game, to Red 13 moonwalking in a Shinra uniform, and the over-the-top entertainment offered by Gold Saucer, this game made me smile and laugh more than any other that I've played in a long time. Miraculously, the silliness works even in the midst of an otherwise serious story. In fact, I think it helps the impactful moments hit even harder. Few things help me bond with characters more than laughing and having fun with them, so watching terrible things then befall Cloud and the team is actually upsetting. I think one of the best examples of this tonal whiplash succeeding is Roche. This goofball is completely over the top, a fun character, but one that doesn't seem to have any true significance in the overall story. Until he does. He loses himself, becoming just another hooded man drawn to the reunion. Here's a guy who is so full of life, suddenly reduced to a husk. More importantly, it contributes to Cloud's inner struggle, stoking his fears that he too will succumb to the degradation and become nothing more than a nameless, faceless man in a cloak. In a story that feels very episodic at times, Cloud's inner conflict is the through line that ties everything together. The tension between him and Tifa is palpable from the outset. She knows that his account of what happened in Nibelheim isn't entirely accurate, while Sephiroth's influence leaves him questioning whether the woman at his side is actually his childhood friend or an imposter with ill intentions. I don't often feel genuine distress for characters in video games, but I was worried about Cloud as he became increasingly violent under Sephiroth's malicious influence. Rebirth shows commendable restraint in its depictions of graphic violence. Blood is rarely used, so when it does appear it has a much greater impact. A splash of scarlet across Cloud's cheek is all it takes to highlight the uncharacteristic brutality he shows when Sephiroth takes over. By the end, I feared he would do something terrible. It felt like a genuine possibility that Cloud, not Sephiroth, would be the one to deliver the fatal blow to Aerith. And even though that's not how it ultimately played out, the tension leading up to that moment is unlike anything I can recall experiencing in any game in recent years. As for the ending itself, it's a lot, and I'm still struggling to process it all. In many ways, it feels very similar to Remake's ending, a complete mindfuck designed to confuse, provoke, excite, and inspire. But also like Remake, all the insanity is held together by strong characterization. Cloud is unable to accept that Aerith is dead, that he failed to save her. So while the rest of the party mourns the loss of a beloved companion, he's oddly chipper. It's unsettling to see him so unbothered while the others, Tifa especially, are devastated. Aerith is dead, but maybe not gone. Cloud's conversations with her may or may not be imaginary, but Red 13 senses her too, so clearly she still has some role to play, even from beyond death. Rebirth ends on such an uncertain note. Fear is thick in the air, but there's a wisp of hope as well. I'm desperate to see how the final chapter of this reimagined story unfolds. If there's a part of the story I found less successful, it's Zack's role in everything. His unlikely survival was the exclamation point at the end of Remake, so I expected him to play a major part in the follow-up. I pictured him embarking on a journey of his own that might somehow lead to him linking up with the party at the Forgotten Capital, just in time to witness Aerith's death. Instead, we get a brief check-in with him once every 10 to 15 hours, and he barely even sets foot outside of Sector 5. His appearance in the utterly insane final battle is amazing, but my excitement for that moment was based more on me already liking Zack from Crisis Core, rather than it feeling like the culmination of his story in Rebirth. I have to believe that we'll get more from him in the final game, so I'll reserve full judgment until then. But one of the reasons I like Remake's ending so much is that it created an opportunity to give this guy greater characterization and deeper relationships than he'd ever had in previous appearances. Unfortunately, that didn't really play out here. The original Final Fantasy VII isn't just my personal favorite game of all time. I think it's clearly one of the best video games ever made. Because I hold it in such high regard, I'm hyper aware of anything in Rebirth that isn't immaculate. Every little imperfection sticks out like a sore thumb, but that's not a fair way to experience or evaluate anything. I don't look at anything else with such a critical eye because I don't expect as much from anything else. This is Final Fantasy VII, and in my mind that means it has to be the absolute greatest. When I take a step back though, it's clear to me that Rebirth's issues are largely insignificant, especially compared to its successes. This game gets the important things right. In most cases, really, really right. It continues to elevate and enrich what is already the most endearing cast of characters in video games, offers a complex battle system filled with choices and customization, and kept me on tenterhooks with a story that brought me joy, hope, and fear. And that soundtrack? I mean, come on. I play a lot of video games, and I love a lot of video games. But something tells me it'll be a while before I find another experience as captivating as this one.
Hey. We cutting them off?